Sorry about that, y'all. I had a little disconnection. Waiting for Lord to come back in. Come on in, Lord. They're waiting on you. What's up, Lord? Come on in. People are waiting on you.
And we're back.
Yeah, it's like, it's like you just pause on your side. It's like, damn, there's a disconnection.
Well, I mean, look, in the Wi-Fi world, it's always some shit. So I always I try to be patient with certain things. Especially because as a podcaster myself, every now and then you'll experience one or two issues or whatever the case may be. But you know me, we're gonna get it done no matter what. So as long as yours is straight, I double check mine, so we should be good.
Yeah.
So I think I
And
was saying the last thing was
yeah,
about.
like, your experience as a teacher in the school, your relationship between the students, teachers, and principal. You said that you was gonna break it down.
Yeah, I broke down the teacher part because I got along with all of my coworkers, but the students, it was always an uneven platform because, of course, you're going to have your students that just can't stand you no matter what because you're a person in the community trying to get them right. But for the most part, a lot of the students now, they all grown with their kids and shit. They tell me that I was their favorite teacher. So it's funny how they say that now, and I think the fact that because a lot of their parents had crushes on me, that kind of here's the funny thing. No, listen, but it helps though. Nothing happened. I'm just saying it helps because the thing is just that if that's motivating your child to say, well, my mama like you, and I'm just like, okay, that's weird. But you know what though? It got them focused in class because the thing is just whatever for whatever reason, I don't know what it was, but the whole point was that my stature for education was the main part of what attracted my students because the thing was just that again, I think if I would have been wearing suits every day, I mean they would respect it, but it wouldn't be the same. My students got attached to me because I look like them. And the thing for me is that I was still a grown ass man. I didn't have to stoop down to their level. Some people be like, they act like 13-year-olds. I didn't have to do that with them. But they saw that I'm dressed the way they dress. It's like, so teachers can wear sneakers? I'm like, yeah, I know I can. So my thing is that it just made for great conversation. So when I talk about things like music and politics, they were listening. So I taught them about American history, but I also taught them Black history, more importantly. And I made up my own curriculum. I didn't use the public school curriculum. I was able to create my own. So I was able to teach about the Black Panther Party in depth. I was able to teach about a lot of nationalism and capitalism and how these
And
things interplay.
speaking of history, we gotta know the difference between American history and Black history.
Well, America. I mean, it's pretty. I mean, for
How
instance,
America got their independence, who was the
of
first
course,
president of the United States, so and so. And like for Black history, we learn about things about like the first Black pilot, the first Black baseball player, things about like the Underground Railroad, stuff like
it's
that.
true. But it's true. By the way, you're correct. But honestly, it's even deeper than that, and I'm gonna tell you why. And this is what led me to do both. Because a lot of times when I was growing up in school, they had just started teaching Black history by the time I got to fourth grade, at least from where I was in Brooklyn. Before that shit, it was just all American history with a couple of mentions of Martin Luther King. Rest in peace, happy birthday. The thing is just that it became a non-balanced sort of thing. So for me, I promised myself if I ever became a teacher, I wasn't planning on becoming one. I'm gonna say if I ever became one, how would I do it? I'm like, well, you know what? I learned so much on a street level, and I learned a lot because of who my mother is and knowing how the ability to how to access this information to kids who were younger than me, and even some adults who were the same age as me that didn't know anything about their history per se. So for me, Black history is not just about the first Black people to do this, but it's more so about the culture, how we got left out of the infrastructure of America, because that's the most important part we've got to understand. How was racism born? Because everybody always say, well, if Black people can't stand white people, then why? I said, well, it was never like that from the beginning. I said, from the very beginning, they did not want us. They hated us. They couldn't stand us. So the thing is that when you're dealing with the racist white regime that, quote unquote, you know, got pretty much off on stolen land, because as you know, we were here first. So as the bottom line is that when they raped our children, they raped our wives, and
it's sad.
it's a lot of shit. So you know. So the thing is that when we teach about America, we have to teach about America's inception first. Because see, the problem is that a lot of these kids now, they didn't learn this in school. That's the reason why I have an issue with so many people that can't admit that they didn't know. Well, I didn't know that about white privilege. Like a lot of times you say white privilege, the person is like, I'm not privileged, I worked hard. I'm like, no, that's not what white privilege means. I said, anybody in this country, Black, white, Hispanic, I don't care what you are, it's obvious that whatever you want in life, you got to work hard for it. But you got to remember, there was a system already put in place designed to hold us back as a people. You dig what I'm saying? When they say, oh, the Civil War freed the slaves, I said, yeah, the chains got removed, but guess what? They created mental slavery. They said, okay, you know what? We ain't gonna give these niggas jobs. So we were forced to create our own reality. Thank God for Madam C.J. Walker. You dig what I'm saying? Thank God for the first Black millionaire. Because if we didn't have that to look up to, we would not have known what we could do, because they stripped everything from us. Bottom line, you know this, they stripped everything from us. So I had to teach that when I became a teacher. I'm like, these kids need to know that everything that you see here, yeah, some parts of it is true, but we're going to get deep. So a lot of my discussions in class weren't always based upon the book. I would have a textbook there and I would get certain things, but a lot of times I created my own curriculum because I wanted to show some of the staff members that they can, no, thank God for my aunt, shout out to my aunt Yoni, Mrs. Sparks, because she allowed me to create my own curriculum for music. Because you know, with music, I got deep. I told them how hip hop got started. Because you know, those kids didn't know. It's like, oh, so that's where the Running Man comes from. I say, yeah, all those dances are African originated. A lot of that stuff you see is from the tribe. You know, that's our culture. That's part of where we from. I said, so it's not foreign to y'all. Black Wall Street, so my man said Black Wall. Same thing with that. So it's the same thing. I taught about all that stuff in my class. So that's why my students to this day, some of my students have become activists, and they always give me credit. They'd be like, well, Mr. Worrell taught us the best Black history class ever, because we didn't just talk about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. Yeah, we're gonna talk about them, but we ain't just gonna talk about them. We're gonna talk about Marcus Garvey, Assata Shakur. We're gonna talk about Haile Selassie. We're gonna get deep.
And sorry for cutting you off, Law. If it wasn't for those people that you mentioned, the majority of people our color.
Really sorry, love. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were a lady. My bad. Sorry.
Hi, Dilly. How are you? She's always supporting me. And like, you know, the people that you mentioned, if it wasn't for them, people our color, like, wouldn't be where they at right now. Like people like us, we're strong because of them. You know, stand tall. We gotta fight for our rights.
All day. Look, even now, you would think that over 100 years ago, all the shit that we already went through as a people, who would ever guess in the last 20 to 30 years that we would still have to be going through this shit now, and even worse with the technology that we have. The difference between now and then is that now we getting motherfuckers now. Now we really getting them, because when people thought that we were just resisting arrest from the cops and not realizing that
the cameras everywhere.
Us, you know, and see, that's why NWA is my favorite rap group, because when they said "fuck the police" to this very day is my favorite rap song of all time, because people don't understand why that song was written. It wasn't because they were trying to make an excuse to get at cops. It was because we were getting harassed for no fucking reason.
Yeah, because we just minding our business.
Yeah.
And like, you know, that's the issue, the police brutality. Look at these, like, you know, innocent people that got killed, like, you know, from like, you know, the early 2000s.
Uh-huh.
It's like, you know, like Amadou Diallo, Sandra Bland,
Oh God, yeah.
Breonna Taylor, George Floyd. And speaking
Of
of
course.
Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, those are the two people that are the most talked about. It's like, you know, and like it's like, you know, I just worry for myself. It's like when I
Hmm.
am by myself, or like, you know, with a bunch of people, whenever I see a police car, like, you know, pass by me, I'll just say to myself, are they gonna pull over, or what's gonna happen? It's like, you know, I always observe it, like, you know, I don't trust like, you know, no police officers at all, like, you know,
Hmm.
the opposite race from us.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother story in general. Like, hopefully, have time to talk about it. But I really, for me, it's the perspective of
They
where
gotta
one
do
is.
better. These police officers
Exactly.
gotta do better. In each state of the United States, we need better police officers. We don't need those police officers that would just be killing, like, you know, randomly killing, like, you know, people for no reason. Our color. It's not fair.
Mhm.
It's not fair.
Well, the first thing people got to remember is that what's the origins of the police force? Do you know that? What's the origins of the police force?
You tell me.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you. I'm not putting on the spot. I'm just telling you. The origin of police force is basically slave patrol. That's how the police got started. You can look it up for yourselves. It's documented. The original badge, if you look at the police, the official police badge in different cities and states, they have different versions of that star. It was already created and put in place. The origins of the police starts from the runaway slave patrols, because all the slaves who ran away off the land, you know, like Nat Turner, you know, that was part of the patrol, and that developed into a more bigger infrastructure once technology began to develop within the American system, and it became the police force. So there you go. The whole mentality, even for a black man that becomes a police officer, a lot of them don't even know that. They don't even know the origins of how the police even got formed. So even the whole, what's the mantra of police? To what? To protect and serve. Now you would think in a normal setting for a criminal, that is what it is. But if you look at all the marches in the 1960s, who was getting beat by police for peacefully protesting? Black people. Martin Luther
Yeah,
King got
people
thrown
are
in jail.
color.
So keep in mind, again, they were carrying out the original premise of the police force, going back to what? The runaway slave patrol. So when you get a chance, that's some homework for you. You can look that up.
That's what I'm gonna do,
It'll
Law.
show you the badges. It'll show you everything. I've been knowing about this since 6th grade. So for me, it's like, it's not foreign to me. Like, I learned about it early because of some of the books that I had read that my mother had gave me. So I learned very early about certain signals, certain symbologies, about how different codes were put into the terms of, you know, the original Illuminati, like how they talk about that stuff and the origins of all that stuff. I did my own reading. That's the one thing I always encourage a lot of kids and even some of the adults now. Do your own pre-essay reading before you start researching on YouTube. It's so important. Because having a
And
mother
you
who's a
know,
former
and
Black
take
Panther,
notes. That way,
take
when you
notes,
take
exactly,
notes,
all the
you
time,
study it and
all
you
the time,
remember it when it's being discussed in class.
all the time. I told my kid, I used to tell my kids all the time, like my students and my actual children, anytime you get any piece of information, I don't care if it's music, science, art, English, always make mental notes for yourself so you can trust your own information and the source where you got it from. Because sometimes even the sources ain't correct. See, nowadays on YouTube, everybody's a philosopher. You understand what I'm saying? And
And
we
you
don't
know,
know if they got a degree in philosophy.
people don't go on YouTube for useful things. They don't go
Exactly.
on YouTube for useful things at all. Most
Mm-hmm.
people.
I question a lot of stuff half of the time because what happens to me is that I've always been that way. I've always put together my own information in retrospect, but then also was able to see, well, let me see if something counters that, and how could I see how effective this is into what I already studied and learned. Because if you don't get all the facts, you can't really present a conclusive theory, especially if you only got one piece of the story. There's a lot of layers. Every story has a lot of layers. It's up to the person who's studying to dig deeper, pull back, put some things together. Some things may make sense, and guess what? It may take years for certain things to make sense. You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I always, even to this day, and my age and my stage, when I'm reading anything, I'm always putting certain things together first before I sit there and be like, well, this is what happened and that's that. No, you can't do that. I want to get something else. Let me read this. Let me get into this. That's how you dig deep into getting knowledge, what they call knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. That's what that's about. You get the knowledge, do the wisdom, and that's how you'll understand. You know, Islam, the Islamic Muslim brothers adopted that theory about knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and I got to agree with on that. It's just basically about just doing your essay and your reading and just learning these different aspects of culture, you know?
And you know, speaking of hip hop, hip hop, you know, it came out in the late 70s, and you know, in hip hop, like, you know, when you listen to hip hop, it's a lot of thinking. And you have to, like, you know, think about hip hop more than R&B, because, you know, hip hop, like, you know, it's a lesson thought, talks about our people, talks about religion. It talks about, like, you know, child, and, like, you know, in most, like, you know, hip hop songs, you will hear, like, you know, rappers saying like, you know, how, like, you know, how they started when they were a kid. Once upon a time, like, you know, when I was a child, like, for example, like Slick Rick, Tupac.
Oh, Slick Rick. Oh my God. Well, I was gonna say, you know, the interesting thing about hip hop, like especially when I discovered it at 7 years old, people forget that rap stands for rhythm and poetry. That's rap music. Rapping,
and speaking
back
of
in the
rap,
70s, meant talking.
sorry to cut you off. So speaking of rap, most people think hip hop and rap are the same, but hip hop and rap are different. They're two different genres.
No. I'm gonna tell you what happened. I'm gonna tell you why that is if you want to listen to it. Here's why people always get the two confused. Is because rap music is the music that represents hip hop culture. So a lot of times when somebody says that ain't nothing but hip hop, it's because they're just grouping it all together. Now, because we're deep with it, we know the difference. But the person who's not deep with hip hop or rap music like that, they're gonna always synonymize one with the other. So as I got older, I understood why people always said, "Oh, that's hip hop music. That's hip hop music," and it's not the culture, even though it's a two different thing. Because KRS-One kind of made that applicable. But the bottom line is that for those that don't know, rap music is the music that represents hip hop culture, which is of course graffiti, breaking, and DJing and rapping. That's the four aspects of hip hop, as we all know. It represents the degrees of what hip hop means in every fashion, shape, or form. Because honestly, rapping was already around before the term rap music was already a thing. Rapping means talk. Back in the 70s. Come in, let me rap to you, Lawrence. Let me rap to you real quick. That meant let me talk to you. So it's conversational. That's OG talk. Come here, Lord. Let me rap for a second. My uncles, my old school uncles.
And we gotta keep it in mind, like the Sugar Hill Gang was the first hip hop group out.
Okay, I'm glad you clarified that, because I always tell people are like, they're the first hip hop group. I said, no, they're not the first hip hop group. They're the first hip hop group to get noticed on a national level. There was already hip hop groups in the Bronx. Cold Crush and all those guys, they were already around. But Sugar Hill Gang was the group that broke through first and opened the door for the rest of the guys from the Bronx to come back. So that's always make sure people know the difference. I'm like,
Dilly is like, take her back.
I'm not taking anybody back. We just having a discussion. I mean, if she knows, she knows.
Yeah.
And if she
I like to go way back, way back.
But that's, I mean, no, because a lot of people do mistake. I'm glad you said it, because a lot of people do confuse that. They think, oh, Sugar Hill, that's the first. I said, no, it's not the first rap group, honey. I said, it's the first rap group that got notoriety. They got famous because Grandmaster Caz and Melly Mel, all those guys already had a record out called Super Rapping. Back in the day, Melly Mel with the Clientele, gonna rock your charm and ring your bell, but it wasn't known nationally. It was only on a local level. And then Sugar Hill Gang got with, of course, the great Sylvia Robinson and just said the hip, the hop, the hip, the hip to the hip. And somehow or another, that record just caught so much fire. And I think that was mainly because at the time, disco was very popular, 79. And because it had that disco Good Times, Nile Rodgers Chic beat, it was like, okay, this is not Good Times, but what is this? What's this new thing that they're doing? And that's when it caught fire. So a lot of white people that did not know what rap was or what hip hop was, it's like some people liked it, some people hated it. Some people said it'll never last a year. 40 years later, we're still here. See what I mean?
And like, you know, hip hop nowadays is just like R&B nowadays. They say they miss real hip hop. Why aren't you supporting it? And speaking of hip hop nowadays, Law, what is your what are your thoughts about the hip hop artists nowadays?
The number one question I get in every interview that I do. Here's my thing. Hip hop as a whole, you got to remember, like with all music genres, hip hop had to evolve. Every generation is a new thing. At one point, there were people rapping like Das Effects. Remember them?
Yeah.
At one point, everybody was trying to rap like Das Effects. At one point, everybody was trying to rap like Onyx. It's time to get live, live. Everybody was yelling on the track. And at one point, there were a lot of rappers trying to be like Big Will Planet. They wanted to be weird. Beat the big thing. I forgot the words of the song. Cool like that. Like real jazzy. At one point, everybody was trying to be like De La Soul. So you got to remember, see, what people forget sometimes is that like all genres of music, hip hop was constantly evolving. Now, did it evolve for the better? Now, here's my personal opinion. My opinion. Some of today's shit, some of these guys are cool. It depends on who we're talking about. I like a few of them. But the whole point is that because of payola and radio schemes, these kids only get to hear one side of the coin unless they got parents that have raised them on the appreciation of hip hop. Because honestly, the majority of the new shit, in my opinion, is trash. I don't like a lot of it. There's a few guys I'll be like, okay, he's dope. She's dope. I kind of like this. And also another perspective I have on it is too is that everything has its place. People get real surprised when they find out that I'm a huge Megan Thee Stallion fan. It's like
I love Megan Thee Stallion. You know, she's one of the rappers nowadays that I like because she's real, and you know her music.
Not only because she's real, but let me point something else out. First of all, when I first heard her, I was like, okay, you know, in the beginning I was like, okay, typical shit I expect. I saw an interview that she did, and I discovered that she was very intelligent. And then they put a whole nother beat and told her to freestyle, and she killed it. I was like,
yeah, when she I saw the video early last year, Laura, when she was rapping to some old school hip hop beat. I was like, damn, she got some bars. Because I'm
gonna be honest with you, most girls, and I'm not saying all, I just said keyword, most girls that come out now, they all do, like somebody, Dilly said it again, they all do sound the same. I agree with you. That's the problem I have with the guys. If you put these motherfuckers in a lineup, you couldn't tell them apart because they all look the same, they wear the same type of clothes. That's where I have the issue at. Because the thing is that I'm from an era where Slick Rick didn't sound like Big Daddy Kane. Big Daddy Kane didn't dress like LL Cool J, and LL Cool J didn't dress like Q-Tip. See what I'm saying? Like it all, everybody was different but effective. That's what made hip hop enjoyable for me. It's about variety. But the problem is that when these record label owners, big thing, it's like, okay, you know what? That's hot. Let's make 30 million more of that and get some more money. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the money. So
you gotta get your money right. That's what's on the hip hop. If you don't get your money right, if you can't you don't know what you're doing, oh, that's a problem.
Well, I mean,
gotta be about your game.
You know, you're right about that. But honestly, that's deeper than just hip hop. That's been going on since the last 100 years in the music industry. So you have to understand that A lot of different things don't come into play until you learn business overall. So it doesn't matter which genre of music you do. You have to have knowledge of the business. You can be the most heavy metal headbanging rock and roller to the dopest hip hop. If your business is not straight, it's gonna be in vain. And everybody don't get a second chance to do it over. So the whole point is that if you don't start getting smart, see, part of my story, all the people who you see I've worked with, if I was signed to a major label back then, those things probably would have never happened, because you got to remember, there's a certain freedom being an independent artist where you get to move the way you want to move. See, I always moved the way I wanted to move. And I tried the record label thing. There's a lot of labels that wanted to sign me. Sony was one of them. And the thing was just that I liked the contract. The contract was bullshit. And it made me feel like if you don't sign with us, you'll never make it in this business.
Yeah, speaking of contract law, sorry to interrupt you. I'm going to pause you right there. You did a smart idea, because, that's what's like, the problem. That's the problem in the music industry. It's like, artists that are talented, they give them this, like, useless contract. That's what, like, a couple of R&B groups and hip hop groups went through back in the day.
Yeah.
I'm a talented artist. Don't give me no bullshit on contract. Give me a real contract.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. A contract has to be in your favor as an artist. See, you got to remember, I've always told people, what about major label deals? Now, see, nowadays, and from my opinion, and proven already, you don't need a major label contract. But here's my thing. If you're going to get a major deal, you want to make sure that you have the right lawyer and that the contract is in your favor. Because if the contract is not in your favor.
And speaking of that, you got to get you a lawyer that will not lie to you, that will not manipulate your character, and that will not tarnish your image. Because that's the common thing about lawyers. They lie and think that they could get away with things.
Well, honestly, here's a theory for you. You get what you pay for. Think about that. Don't let that go over your head. You get what you pay for. If your money's good enough and you can hire a good lawyer, if it doesn't require a retainer, you may very well get a lawyer that will care and represent you in the way that you need to be represented. Like I was very fortunate that my grandfather had the right lawyer at that time, because otherwise he wouldn't have got his money from all this stuff, from all the samples that the rappers sampled his stuff. So he wouldn't have got his money. But the thing is just that if we didn't have the right lawyer that actually cared enough, not just because we paid him, but more so because he wanted to make sure that my grandfather got all of his money. It's a caring process. So you're right about that. So it all depends on the hiring and who really cares when you're paying them the money. It's all boils down to the money again,
Yeah. And speaking of Megan Thee Stallion, we're gonna in one of her songs, she took Tupac's lyrics in a song. I forgot the name of it, and she put it in her own words. And
that's
so
Who's this now? Who you talking about?
Megan Thee Stallion, one of her songs.
Oh, yeah.
I know BITCH, because that's what you're gonna call me when I'm tripping anyway. She took the lyrics of that song, and she put it in her own words. And that song that she took the lyrics from is like it's not played like on the radio at all. People don't hear about it. So like what's like your own perspective about like Tupac's version of the song and Megan Thee Stallion's version of the song?
Well, I mean, it's like with all things that can be interpreted. So of course Megan was successfully able to interpret that for her shit, and because Tupac has always been a double-sided coin anyway, let's keep it honest, it makes a lot of sense. So I actually enjoyed the fact that she was able to take that part of it and use it to her advantage in that song. So I dug it. I really understood why that has to happen. And Tupac, like I said, Tupac has always been on both sides of the fence anyway. So I'm not surprised.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of Tupac, if you read his quotes, it makes a lot of sense. most of these rappers, they learn from Tupac because he teaches people, he gives people advice, not only people in the industry, people in general.
Well, I mean, Tupac. I mean, here's the thing with Tupac, because Tupac we have a lot. Have you noticed we have a lot of similarities? Tupac's mom, Afeni, was in the Black Panther movement too. So you understand that Pac, again, he catered to both sides of who he was. There's a thug life. And see, here's where it gets interesting about a lot of rappers. A lot of rappers who love Pac, they'll take the thug life side more so than the other side of who he was. I want to be like Pac. I can't be touched. I'm untouchable. I can't be. And it's like, okay, yeah, I get that part, but guess what? There's the whole other side to Pac that gave you Keep Your Head Up, or Brenda's Got a Baby, or gave you the educational value or track about the political prison system. So I always tell people, if you're gonna emulate Pac, emulate all of who he was. Don't just take a piece of it and just be like, I'm gonna run with that, because that piece wasn't always peaceful. Pac, if you heard him in the interview, Pac was like, I got a big mouth. My mouth has gotten me into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, because you know why he says that? Because he's real. He's real. He's the type that don't take shit. He's the type that will tell you as it is. And that's the sad part in this society and in every community. People, they don't like the real ones. It's like, the real people get scars.
Yeah,
they don't get no awards, they get scars.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm a Scorpio, so I relate.
I'm a Cancer.
So you already know. And the thing is that it's to be in a plethora of being honest, you have to always know that there's just going to be people that just don't like your honesty. It took me a while to learn that. I didn't learn it until my early 20s, that people just wasn't going to feel how blunt I was. So I'm like, fuck it. I'm just going to keep being me, and then hopefully people can understand why I am the way I am. That'll be my audience. And over the years, that audience developed into one of the best families in the world. So I found that people really liked the fact that I was very direct with them when I spoke in a lot of different ways. And I said things that they talked about in their living room. So now here's somebody that got the balls to actually come out on social media or any platform that you give them and talk the real. So I'm with it.
Yeah, but people, a lot of people mistaking me for something that I'm not. That, I'm mean, why do I act like this? How come I'm not friendly? And I'm very selective of my friends. And I don't care. Just keep on calling me mean, because I see you like somebody who I don't, excuse my language, who I don't want to fuck with. I read you. I read you. Okay, sorry about that, Law.
Okay. Oh, I thought you said, was it still? So just being who you are.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it real. I ain't friendly. Just to be honest with you, I ain't friendly. I'm very selective.
You're friendly to me.
Yeah, I'm friendly to you because you're somebody who I could relate to.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's like, I read a person right away. If I tell you trouble, if I see that you trouble, I won't fuck with you. If I see you real, I'll fuck with you.
Got you. I'm a Scorpio, so for me, my energy is I pick it up right away. I pick it up very
I'm a Cancer. They say we sensitive, but don't fuck with us because we'll come for your ass.
I was married to one, so I know. I was married to a Cancer, so I pretty much I know Cancers are very, when that button is pushed, it's pushed. So that's another thing in general. But it's really about law of attraction, not just from male, female perspective, but just energies in general. And in true ghetto hood nature, I fuck with those who fuck with me. I'm the first person when I greet people, I go like this: how are you? How are you doing? What's going on with you? What you like? I'm very open like that. I'm very open like that. So
it's like me, I don't not ghetto, but if the ghetto has to come out of me, it has to. I'm just like I keep it cordial with a lot of people, and I stay away from those people who I know for a fact that I don't want in my circle. I don't want in my presence.
Mm-hmm. Well, you gotta protect your energy. That's the main thing. Protect your energy. I do it all the time. That's the reason why I'm sucker free. That's the reason why I don't look my age. So for me, it's like you gotta be sucker free on all levels. And I protected myself a lot during those years to make sure that my peace is protected at all times. Because this industry is dealing in this industry is hard enough as it is. So I don't need to have the bullshit when I leave the building to go home or to be in any place that doesn't include music. So yeah.
Mhm. And you know, but speaking of the industry, it's like you as somebody that's part of the industry, you gotta be very careful who you talk to, who you socialize with, because it's like a lot of these couple of these artists, they've been blackballed. And you know, those artists that have been blackballed, they will stab you with the back.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there. This happened to me a few years ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you know, I've never been an industry person. I'm more in the streets. Difference. There's in the streets and there's industry. Now I can play in the industry because I do love the art of the game. I don't like all the business aspect parts of it, but I love the structure when it works for an independent artist like myself. But
Mhm.
on the other hand, I'm from the street, so my direct nature of how to approach it is we don't need all that technical term shit for me to talk to you. I'm just a person where I'm so down to earth, I can sit and have a real conversation with you to figure out what we need to do. All that extra shit is meaningless. You ain't gotta dance around me. You ain't gotta go through 3 different people to talk to me.
Mhm.
You know, it's very important. You have to maintain that, and I maintained that the last 20-something years being in this business because I've pick and choose my battles. You know.
Yeah, gotta pick and choose.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And like you know, speaking of you being an independent artist, is what's your experience like performing on stage? How did you feel before you got on stage, and what were your feelings after you got on stage?
Truthfully, because I was confident even back then as a kid. So, um, the first reaction before I get on stage is I'm ready to kill shit. Like I have so much energy inside me, and then if the band is ready, the lights is up, and the energy is there with the people, I become a fireball. I become a total blazing set. You see my videos. Like I'm
Yeah, yeah,
very
I already know that. Oh my God, this dude know how
so
to do a two-step. This dude is all about business. He was
so
like,
it's really you got. I love to perform. I love entertaining. So for me, it's just that never goes away. After the show, I feel it in my spirits. I still have energy left. Sometimes we would do like an hour show or 2 hours. I'm like I could have did 3 more hours just on energy alone. But I really take the time to say, well, after this show, I think we did pretty good. Like my satisfaction, the body heat that I get, I'm just like, yeah, Lord, you did that. Because my motto is if you ain't sweating, you ain't doing shit. So after the show, I'm just like, I feel it. I'm just like, and you hear the screams. Like one show we did, I'll never forget this show as long as I live. You probably seen a clip of it. That's the clip where I'm doing the split like 3 times. I do it 3
oh
times
yeah,
in a
I
row.
seen it. And I was
And
like,
that night,
ooh, I hope you didn't hurt yourself. Okay,
no,
cool.
these are strong legs. I'm good. So the third you know the clip cut short. That night that I did that, you heard how the crowd was screaming. I wish I can get the actual footage. After I said plants off upon you, they started going, Lord, 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 Lord. And I've heard that quite a few times in my
Break
career.
it
So to
down
hear
some
that,
more.
well, you know, no, it wasn't that kind of a show. It was a different kind of show. I actually was second to the person that was coming on before, after us. But I think the whole adrenaline of that rush was a good thing. And, you know, some nights they won't go law, law, law. Some nights they'll just scream and go crazy. They'll have that part of it too. So when I hear that as I'm exiting, I know that we got them. I know that we just made 20 to 30 new fans that night. So it's never a dull moment. Now, have there been times where I kind of figured, I wonder if this new set list is going to work tonight? Because I like to switch things up sometimes. So it's like, will this particular song work? Because in the early days, you have to kind of know your audience. You learn what works, what doesn't really work for you, because what works for one artist may not work for another. Like Too Short, love him, but he's not a dancer. Don't expect Too Short to come out and dance. He's not that guy. He's more of a laid-back Oakland kind of thing. MC Hammer's from Oakland, but we already know what MC Hammer's going to do. That's James Brown of hip-hop. So when Hammer come out,
like Dilly said, like James Brown.
well, of course. Come on now. He's the epitome of he's the creator of funk and the innovator of modern dance. So James Brown influenced everybody. Name a singer and a dancer he didn't influence.
Forever remembered.
Of course. And my uncle played with him for 2 years. So that's, I had the advantage of seeing James Brown up front, met him, and then of course when my time came to work with other band members and people like some of the OGs who I looked up to, that was the most amazing part because of the fact that James had the ability to really resonate in he knew he was the shit. That's what I love about it. He knew. I'm the godfather of soul. I'm the hardest working man in showbiz. Soul brother #1, Mr. Dynamite, minister of super new heavy funk.
Yeah, he was about his business.
Well, if you look at my monitor,
hey, Rolanda,
they call me the most talented kid in the music biz. Where did that come from? That comes from us trying to be like James Brown because my DJ made it up. I didn't make it up myself. My DJ was like, "Hey, Lord, if we gonna mark this Plan 12 thing, we need like a moniker or something like that." So what do you mean? Like, kind of like how like Michael Jackson's the king of pop. I'm like, oh, you mean like something like that? Okay, well let's sit down and figure it out. So he was like run through some things. The king of entertainment. I'm saying, no, I'm not really feeling that. No. Yo, Lord, I got it. The most talented kid in the music biz. I'm like, that sounds kind of arrogant. And he's like, no, Lord, it's not. Think about it. You're a real singer. That's a real MC that can really dance. You play 7 different instruments, and you do all your own choreography, and you do all this other stuff. And plus, on top of all that, they're like a 9-year-old kid when you get on stage. You don't know how to act. That's true. That means the stage is my playground. See, yeah, Lord, that's it. That's how we came up with it. And in the beginning, a lot of people were all put by it. He was like, most talented kid in the music biz. Who the fuck do you think he is? But after a while, we changed their minds. And that's the beauty of having a fan base that begins to understand who you are because they realize, oh, it's part of the marketing strategy. I said, you can say that, but guess what? What you do is true. Because at that particular point, I'll be honest, even now in 2021, there may be a few people that I have similarities with, but I can honestly sit here in front of you and tell you that in 2021, even still, there's nobody doing what I'm doing. I promise you. There's nobody doing what I'm doing. So there's a lot of people who fit in that same category, in that same vein, but there's a lot of people who are not doing what I'm doing. So I create a lane for myself that most entertainers and singers or whatever you want to call it have. And it worked for my benefit.
Yeah. You got to do something different. Show them show on those people their talents like they never seen before. That's what they like to see.
Well,
show Lord needs to show the people what he's about.
Well, thank Prince and Stevie Wonder for that because I knew that I wanted to be different in general scope of things. And, of course, also people was like, well, I'm not the only talented kid in the building. I said, there's a lot of them. I said, there's certain things, like perfect example. I play every instrument except for horns. I can arrange horns. I can write them. I can tell a trumpet player what I want to hear, but I can't play horns to save my life. So me being a horn arranger makes up for me not being able to play actual horns, but I can play them on keyboards. I can go to my keyboard and play a horn part that I exactly want the horns to do. So that's a talent by itself, even though I don't play percussive horns. I don't play the real deal. But that's it. Everything else I do play. But I'm just saying more so, there are a lot of guys like that. There's a whole lot of other guys. My boy Swang, me and him did a Sign of Family Stone tribute one night, and we switched instruments all night. I loved it. We switched instruments all night. And it was mad fun. No ego or nothing like that. I'm like, oh, so you play bass too? I'm like, okay. And then, it's fun. It's like, I don't have to be the only person that can switch and play instruments. It's good when you get around other secure people who are just like you. So I've always managed to be around people who can sing their asses off.
And speaking of singing, I just want to this is a fun fact about me. I've been singing since before I was even a teenager. And, you know,
Okay.
everybody that heard me sing said that, oh, that Marion could sing. But I've been on and off. So, like, you know, when I sing nowadays, it's not as good as back in the day. So, but
It's just, you know, and who said that? Oh, thank you. Who said that? Oh, thank you, Abby. I appreciate that. It's again, it's just a matter of keeping involved. That's why the number one thing in this game, when people always ask me for my advice in the industry, is to two things: stay ever evolving, actually three things: stay ever evolving, stay growing, and most importantly, stay healthy. Because the
yeah,
bottom line is that age doesn't have anything to do with it. If you can take care of yourself, especially during this pandemic, which is not easy. I understand. Like a lot of people will go, it's not easy. But if you're committed to the craft, like I'm in the gym every day, when you're committed to the craft and you know that you have to be accessible, because I don't want to be in my 50s and then all of a sudden, you know, I'm all bent out of shape. I can't, my fingers ain't together. I can't, my coordination ain't right. Those things come into place because, again, old is a state of mind. The minute you start professing to be old and you're not taking care of your body, you will become old. I've seen
yeah,
it. Like,
and
I've
I'm
seen it
sorry
happen.
for cutting you off, Lord. That's what's common in the music business, and
Yeah.
that's the like you know the solution that you know we need to have you know
Mhm.
health scare. You know, a lot of these artists are dying from strokes, cancer, stage 4 cancer,
Mhm.
kidney disease, liver cancer, heart disease.
And not even COVID, because not even that, because most times what happens with the COVID thing is that when some of these people, and God bless their souls, the people who have passed away from the results of COVID, but you got to remember there was a whole thing that they had beforehand, because a lot of these people in their 50s and 60s were not taking care of themselves. So when they get a thing like COVID, it affects, you got to remember, COVID affects the immune system more than anything else. So if you do not have, see, look, I got my D12. When you do your B12s and your vitamins and and mind you, I've been doing this. I've been doing vitamin D for almost 20 something years. Like this is nothing. I got a whole case of herbs and all kinds of stuff that I've always kept with me to keep in shape and keep in process of everything else. Because while I'm working out, those internal things are very important. So I'm checking my blood sugar. I'm making sure that everything is popping up. Mind you, I'm just like anybody else. I have my cheat days where I enjoy myself and don't give a shit because I'm disciplined. So if I take 2 days to just do what I want to do, I'm like, okay, Lord, I gotta get back in the gym the next day. Gotta get back in there. And
Yeah,
I'm always reminded because you see what I have in my hand, right? I got
yeah,
water.
water.
This is
That's
all my
what I
cranberry
drink all
juice.
the time. And
Yeah.
you know, I got 2 bottles right here. One that I was drinking, one that I was drinking,
Mm-hmm.
and the one that I haven't even opened yet. This is what I
Yeah.
mostly drink. And you know,
If
and
you
not only water is good for the immune system, for your body, it's
uh-huh.
good for your skin.
Well, if you saw my bed, if you saw my bed, it's surrounded by nothing but water bottles because that's the first step to great health is the last thing you should drink and the first thing you should drink is water. When you go to bed, that's the last thing you put in your system. When you wake up in the morning, that should be the first thing you put in your system before anything else. In between everything you do during the course of the day,
Yeah. I
water
always
should
have
be
water in the
85
morning
minutes
when
in.
I wake up because let me tell you something. I don't play about my body. I take really
Man.
good care of my body and my skin.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can't play out here. That's the main thing. You cannot play out here. I certainly can't because the thing is that with me, as an artist, the health is the most important factor because 95% of what I do on stage is built upon what? My health. I've been doing this since I was 7, so I'm stuck with it. But at the same time, if I'm not hitting that treadmill, if I'm not doing this, it's my ab roller. If I'm not doing
Mhm.
the little things or push-up bars, see, I got to a point where I go to the gym every day, but I also realized that because of the pandemic, anything could shut down at any given time. So I said to myself, if the gym closes tomorrow, what am I going to do? Guess what? I got to quit. I went out and invested money. It didn't have to be no big shit. I got an exercise bike in my living room, torso track in here in this room. consistency about your health is the most important thing. So either way, I won't lose. So for me, it's a combination of all of that. So not even just for entertainment. I'm just talking about in general. Like you said, you drink water. Even if you're not a singer, if you want, I tell people something like, "Oh, I love your skin." I'm like, "That's because I drink water."
Yeah, and speaking of being a singer, before you get in the studio to record a song or you get on stage, that singer has to drink lukewarm water, not hot water, not
Sometimes,
cold water, lukewarm water to clear their vocals.
sometimes. I mean, you know what it is?
No, it's all
Every
the time. It's not sometimes, Lord.
no,
It's
no,
all
no,
the
no, no.
time.
No, listen what I'm saying. No, listen, what I was trying to say is that for every what I've learned over the course of 20, 30 years is that every singer is different. See, I remember I learned that for some people, that's all they really do need. But I've also learned about warm pineapple juice. I've learned about different people have different things. Yeah, it's interesting. And it actually, I tried it one night. I said, let me try this. Let me just see if it really works. And it actually did. Now, does it mean I'm going to get rid of my regular routine? No, but it's just good to see that, you know what? Everybody's different. Everybody has a different way to get to it. Some people use raw lemon. Jill Scott does damn hot sauce, which is interesting, but I understand why, because that hot sauce, she does it straight. She takes like, I didn't come here to sing, but I got some hot sauce in my bag, and then she actually put a teaspoon, and them vocal cords open right the hell up. So it's like,
Oh
different
wow,
people.
this is something new.
Yeah.
Hot sauce does the vocals good. Okay.
Well,
So
and it's
the
different
next
for me
time,
because I'm a first sinner.
so when I go to a showcase, I'm gonna bring her some hot sauce. I'll be like, Jilly, there you go.
Well, no, she knows about that because she was on, I forgot what show she was on, and she had did it, and it was very, very interesting to me because I was like, I've never seen that before. But then I realized steamy, hot surface stuff of any caliber, whether it's sauce, vegetable, or whatever the case may be, anything of that steam pressure in the form of a vaporizing can easily clear any type of mucus or phlegm that you may have. And then thank God I don't smoke. I don't smoke. I don't really drink. I'm
Yeah,
very
that's a good
sharing.
thing. And you
I
know
don't
what
smoke.
else
I don't smoke.
cures mucus, hot lemon tea. Just put ginger and
Oh, I
some
love
like
it.
ginger and garlic. It clears your throat.
Oh
And
yeah,
it's not
absolutely.
only good for it's good for on the pandemic as well.
Oh, you're right.
And,
Absolutely. I agree.
make sure when you have meals or you cook your own meals, just slice pieces of garlic and ginger in it. It's
Absolutely.
good. It prevents
Absolutely.
COVID-19.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, strong immune system is the most important thing. So any vitamins and minerals that anyone takes, it should always be for your immune system first. So vitamin B and D and vitamin C, of course, those and zinc, those are the things that will protect you from easily catching COVID if you're not immune to it. So you're right. You're absolutely right. So those things are very important. And because I've always taken the oath to health, even in between those years of being a teenager, I was always conscious of stuff like that. I was always curious about why do we need vitamin C? Look, you're gonna laugh. To this very day, where's it at? I still eat these.
But what's
Flintstone,
that?
Flintstone gummy vitamins. I still do those to this day. And apple cider
I
vinegar
used
because
to
I like to
eat
take some apple
those
cider
when
vinegar.
I was younger. I used to have those.
Yeah, I'm a
They're
grown
good for
ass man and
you.
I still do these. It still works. Listen, I don't. Here's the thing. Again, and then they're wondering why I move the way I do. They're wondering why I don't have these health issues at a stage where, usually at my age, you see people running into. You gotta remember, it's different for me because I lost a lot of my friends who were the same age as me. They were in their like
My
early 40s,
condolences.
and a lot of them, honestly, they weren't in good health. So I took an oath. I mean, I already took an oath way before these deaths, but all it just did was remind me. This is why you have to get better as you get older. See, old and older are two different things. I'm not old. I'm older. So the
Yeah.
difference is that because I'm older, I have to be smarter. I got to make sure. Okay, Lord, how much rest are you getting? Okay, how much time are we spending doing this? How much time are we putting? These things are my daily routine when I'm not busy with the Planet 12 stuff. So it's almost like I'm a critical thinker. As a Scorpio, that gives me the right to have a critical mindset. So I'm always thinking of ways to get better, not only on a professional level, on a personal level too, because it's very important. If I can't be at my best, how my fans going to expect me to put on a great show? I have to be at my, if you're not getting better, that's where the problem of that's where getting old comes in at. If you're not better than what you were 2 or 4 years ago or 5 years ago, you ain't growing. You ain't growing. And that's the bottom line. That's spiritually or physically or anything else. You have to grow and get better. You see, I'll be doing the age. I don't know if you ever saw my age challenge. I did a thing where 20 years and they showed a picture of my old self and my today's self. It was like
20-year challenge.
Yeah. They was like, you look the same, Law. They said, you look exactly the same as you did in high school. And I said, it's simply because, again, I made some very conscious decisions. I'm not bragging. I'm just making a statement. It's just really, you got to take care of yourself. You know what I mean? And I got nephews and you know, and cousins and shit. You know, all the younger guys, they look up to me because I'm like, listen, y'all guys in your late 20s, your early 30s, you better hope that when you get my age, you look this good, because the thing is that preservation is the key. So and they listen because they see it. It's like, well, Uncle looked the part. He don't like no typical uncle. You know, you dig what I'm saying? So I got that in my family along with my brothers and a few of my other cousins. Like, they'd be like, damn, Law look the same, because there's certain things I took into account to make sure that my restoration is cool. I've even gotten better at my sleep recently because, you know, I'm such a night owl. So sometimes if I'm up and I don't go to bed till like 3 or 4 in the morning, or depending on that, that's actually slowed down a lot the last month for some change. I've actually been doing better with my sleep and getting shit done. And what happens is that I'm kind of liking this a little bit even more now than I did before. And it's not because I don't have energy, it's because I'm valuing what it does for me when I get a certain amount of rest.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that, you know, they said like 8 hours sleep, 9 hours sleep, 10 hours sleep is the best sleep. That's why most of the time now I'm in my bed like at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and I usually wake up early in the morning. And that's my goal for this year. I want to get an 8 to 10 hours sleep.
Well, I mean, I usually get,
it changes the body.
Say, I get it on purpose because, you know, being a boss of your own company and then you work with other bosses and sometimes for other bosses, is that I'm able to kind of afford a luxury where I can really design my sleep hours. But fortunately, I don't say unfortunately, but fortunately, because I have a brand that's growing every day, I can't sleep too long. So it's almost like, if I sleep for if I get a good 6 or 7 hours, I'm good to go. But I got to remember, I got to set aside time for my workout, and I got to set aside time to deal with fans and put things together. I mean, after I get off with you, I got a whole bunch of shit I got to do because I give myself the time limit tonight to what time I'm going to sleep. So I got to abide by that and make sure that no matter what, Lord, get what you got to get done. So
got to arrange your time.
You decide, you ready to go. So that's it's all about being consistent. And I try to be as consistent as possible. So you're right, it does help.
Yep, you got to arrange your time, because it's like you got to wake up early in the morning. You got to do what you got to do. As you see me, I got to wake up at like 7:30 in the morning because I have a doctor's appointment in the morning. I gotta be there 20 minutes before my appointment, and that's common. Got a doctor's appointment, you gotta be there like 20 minutes before your appointment, or not even that, 30 minutes. Gotta be like, you gotta be well prepared.
No, it's true. It's very, very true. You have to. It's so important. I agree.
Oof. All right, Laura. I enjoyed our conversation.
Same here. I really, this was fun. I'm glad we had a chance to do this. We had talked about it last week, and, you know, the free form thing of everything else, but we connected so much on that interview and things like that, and then come to find out what you know, it was no way in the world I wasn't going to do this with you. So it's good to know that there are people like yourselves that actually know what's going on and what's up. Hey, Renee. Hey, Jackie. I see y'all. So it's just good to have that conversation with people who are supporting my movement. And then, of course, you know, you obviously did your homework. So
yeah. You know, and I'm going to do more of the homework that you gave me.
Please do that. It's going. Listen, it's going to blow your mind. I promise you. There's so much stuff about the origin. One of the first. Let me give you another homework. I'm going to come up as a teacher, but another assignment for you if you can find this book. One of the first books that I read that gave me more of an insight to my culture and what we went through as a people was a book that my mother gave me called Before the Mayflower. That talks about, you know, the centuries before that pilgrim shit and all the shit that we learn about on Thanksgiving, aka Thanks-taking. So it's almost like a thing as to where you get to learn about this stuff. Before the Mayflower was one of the first books that my mother gave me when she realized how woke I was. You know, everybody nowadays talking about I'm woke. Woke is like a slang word now, but I was woke before woke became a catchphrase. So it's like I be laughing sometimes. Like, I'm woke. I'm like, I've been woke since I was 10. Y'all late. I've been woke about my culture, but I mean, I'm not mad at it. But I'm just saying more so like, you know, everybody just use it so loosely now. I'm woke. I'm like, what? Do you know what it really means to be woke? And some people don't. But I'm just saying more so. I recommend that book to you strongly. Besides the Runaway Slave Patrol thing that I talked about. But definitely get that book if you can find it online. It's called Before the Mayflower. Incredible book about the history of pre-civil rights and then the stuff about the pilgrims and the settlers who were already here, Native Americans and the Indians and us black folks. It talks about the whole perspective all the way up until the 60s. That's how deep this book is. So I recommend that to you as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Lord.
You're welcome.
And I'm definitely going to read that book. Thank you so much. You have a wonderful night. We're going to talk later.
Absolutely. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for tuning in too as well. Thank you, Dilly. Nice to meet you. Everybody else, we love you. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Take care, love.
All right. Take care. All Brooklyn right. Love. Spread love the Brooklyn way.
All day.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, hon.
All right. Take care.